So what is going on YouTube? Nelly versus Vinchester in Deathmatch World Cup 4 now, I believe, $10,000 on the line, sponsored mostly by the Deathmatch community of Age of Empires. We will talk a lot about Deathmatch in the upcoming days of Deathmatch World Cup. I have a video planned that specifically explains the rules. For now, what you have to know is that you start with post-Imperial start, and you start with a lot of resources, which means that the game mode is very, very fast. Some people dislike this game mode, some people love it. I'm kind of neutral with that, but let's talk about this setup first. Nelly, one of the best deathmatch players out there versus Vinch, who's an excellent player, but not necessarily that much deathmatch focused. So we have a barracks opening here for Vinch, which is already somewhat surprising a little bit. And both players are opening ranges, which is, again, a bit of a surprise. So the way that deathmatch works is that you bring in your cavalry first to try and snipe villagers. There is a big bottleneck when it comes to starting deathmatch games, and that is your vills at the beginning of the game, as Nelly is going for... Actually, that's Vinch. Vinch is going for a market strategy. You can see that he sold a bunch of resources. There is so many things to talk about, and the game mode is super fast, so I won't have time to explain everything if you're new to this, but stay on the lookout on YouTube for my deathmatch explanation video, which will cover most of the basic rules. But the idea is that at the beginning of the game, you have a limited amount of villager time, basically. You have to make production buildings, you have to make houses, so killing the early villagers of the opponent is extremely important, and you see that Vinchester already killed one at the beginning. The map is Atacama, and we have a Japanese mirror. Deathmatch is mostly played as a mirror, although in Deathmatch World Cup 4 apparently we'll have some non-mirror matchups as well. So one more thing to add before we actually take a look at the fights that are happening is that in Deathmatch, the game is played on fast speed compared to normal, so it's not just about the super fast start because of the resource abundance, it's also because the game is played on a faster speed than normal. Now, this map is Atacama, and Vinchester actually grabs a very, very nice lead over here, I would say. Here comes the Cav Archers, picks off another Vill, and I did mention that picking off early Vills is extremely important. Nelly comes back with the counterattack, takes down a Vill here, and he's going to pick off another one on the town centers, limiting the expansion of Vinchester. So in the first stage of every deathmatch game, you're going to see the players sort of spamming some fast-moving and aggressive units that are trying to kill the opponent's vills. This could be paladins, this could be cavaliers, camels. For Japanese, it's cav archers mostly, because Japanese cavalry are missing +4 defense, which means they're easily cleaned up by cav archers. And the cav archers also give you the flexibility of being able to pick off vills from a distance. So at this point, the vill KD is actually pretty close. We do have some delete tricks, I believe, here from Nelly, catching the blob of Vinchester. As I said, on Deathmatch, you start with every tech research, so these keeps actually have crazy damage output. You can see these are fully upgraded Yasama keeps, which obviously helps quite a bit when it comes to securing the middle. And on a map like Atacama, where most of the wood is in the middle, this is extremely important, especially in Deathmatch. In Deathmatch, controlling resources like gold, food, not necessarily food because obviously you can do farming later, but especially gold and wood control is extremely important. So being able to secure the middle is just essential. We do have Karaparuto traps coming in here as well for Vinchester. Nelly is also trying to secure the middle, but that fails quite badly. Vinchester, however, is going for a very aggressive strategy. I did mention that he used the market. You can see that his villager count is actually much lower than Nelly's vill count. Part of that is the fact that Nelly comes in with an excellent rate to pick off the reinforcements, but the other part is that one of the things that you can do in Deathmatch, if you want to play aggressive, is to make a market early on and sell some of your food and wood for some extra gold. This allows you to get more gold units on the field early on and allows for more aggressive openings. The trade-off is that you probably sacrifice your transition to the second stage of the Deathmatch game, which is the addition of eco. You can see that both players are spamming town centers all across the map. And the first thing that players will do, as Nelly is going to lose that castle, I believe, is that they will send all their vills to gold. You can see that basically everybody is sending vills to gold, because you still have a lot of food and wood. So in Deathmatch, when you start transitioning to the second stage of the game, it's probably going to be like 50 vills on gold and 0 on food and wood, and then you start adding vills on food and wood. So at this stage, you see Nelly is securing the map here with a castle, tries to get this corner, which has a lot of gold and stone in here. And Nelly now double the will count and double the military count as well. This is what I was referring to when I said it's a market-based strategy that Vinchester is using. If he sells the resources, he's gonna have temporary momentum at the beginning, but his transition to the second stage is going to be much, much worse because he's sacrificing a lot of his resources at the beginning to get some additional gold for himself. I will talk a lot more in detail about the market strategies in my upcoming deathmatch video, because that's a topic that I could talk about for 10 minutes by itself. But Nelly loops around with the cav archers to try and intercept reinforcements once again. So, for now, Vinchester does have a foothold in the middle, and resource denial is definitely something that should be paid attention for in deathmatch. Oftentimes, well, not super frequently, but in many cases in deathmatch, you see instances of the map completely running out of resources because the players have... oh, that's a big fight here, and I'm not sure if this is a good one for Nelly. In fact, he can run into a bunch of skirmishers here for Vinch, and suddenly Nelly drops to 40 military, and most of those are skirms, and this is the one where Samurai can come into play. Samurai are not particularly amazing at killing skirmishers, but it does have a reasonable pierce armor, it's a fast-moving unit, and it has great damage output, so Samurai actually do pretty well against skirmishers, so do onagers, and remember that all that Vinch has to do is just hold the middle until Nelly is going to be in a problem of running out of wood. You see that he is out of his starting wood, so he's gonna have to start chopping in the middle, and like, the wood in the outside here is just so limited that that is not really sustainable in the long run. Traps coming out on the right side for Vinch to try and take down the castle. Nelly brings in his own traps. Onager trying to take down these castles to save this tower, and that is going to succeed. At least he's going to take down one of the Onagers, and he's going to take one more shot. Nope, he lost that before taking a shot, and now Vinchester getting forced back. This is the moment where Nelly's got double the villager count, because he went for a much more eco-heavy approach. And this is probably the time of the game where Vinchester's strategy is the weakest. But if Vinchester is given time, he's gonna be able to build up his eco, and once again the game is gonna be even. We will see if Nelly will let this out of his grasp though, because this castle on the right side will fall. Vinchester is almost exclusively skirmishers, which opens the window for Nelly to go for his own samurai. And also, Nelly is doing an excellent job mixing in some light cav and some skirms from the left side, but it used to be cav archers as well, to limit the movement of Vinch. So Vinchester is confined into his own base, which is a really bad situation in deathmatch, because you see that he's running out of gold super fast here. So expansion across the map in deathmatch is just vital, so to say. And the inability for Vinchester to expand his base could be his undoing. Now the samurai will get picked off easily by the Japanese CA, but you see that Nelly is just crawling closer and closer to those gold mines, because at this point Vinchester's army might not be enough to stop him, although now Vinchester brings back his military numbers on track. You see, as it was mentioned before, Nelly has like 50 wheels on gold. That is exactly the eco balance that you want in that match at the beginning of the game. And this is the moment where he will start sending wheels to food. And you still see that he's got 0 on food. So this is after the gold mines start running out, that's where he starts adding farms. Basically, big onager hit coming in here, as the champions are also mixed in sort of as a meat shield to deal with the skirmishers. Nice onager shot there for Nelly, keeps his own alive. And while Vinchester actually succeeded cleaning up the right side, he's doing so with significant losses on his cav archers, and those cav archers are more and more precious. Vinch also focuses heavily on picking up relics here, or at least the ones that he can realistically access, but now Nelly's got 3 Kataparuto traps here, and Vinchester taps out for a game number 1 victory. This is why I wasn't able to give a long and detailed introduction to the set, because deathmatch games can be extremely fast-paced. And if that's the case, then you might end up missing a game. I remember that in Deathmatch World Cup 3 there were instances of 2-minute long games. So let's talk through Deathmatch here a little bit, what we just saw. As I said, the first step in a Deathmatch game is that you bring in some fast units. This could be heavy cavalry if you are Franks, Huns, Cumans, whatever. This could be cav archers, or this could be camels. You do that in an effort to pick off the opponent's early villas, because the biggest bottleneck at the beginning is villas. You need to make houses, you need to make production buildings, you need to make siege workshops, and you only have 3 villas to start with at the beginning. You will have 1 TC only, and you don't add second town center. So if I kill 2 of your villas, then suddenly I can create my buildings much faster than you do. If I create my production buildings faster than you do, then I can make military faster, and I can just snowball the game. This is why Deathmatch can spiral out of control in 2 minutes. Because if you lose 4 or 5 villas at the beginning, you might be out because it would just snowball to the hands of the opponent. After that, you start securing map with town centers and castles, mainly focusing on gold and stone mines, and you send most of your villas on gold, because that's the most important resource. You have an abundance of food and wood. That's not a major concern in the long run, or at least in short term. And you want to focus on gold because you want to have a gold-heavy army with Siege. Obviously, the outcome and the way that the game is played out in Deathmatch heavily depends on the civilizations used as well. So Japanese is definitely not one of the standard setups, because you see a lot of towers with Iyasama. Towers are quite rare in Deathmatch overall. One thing to point out is that in every Deathmatch tournament, bombard towers are banned, and the reason why they're banned is because they're very hard to break through. You start with so much stone. You see how many towers Nelly has here? Imagine if these were bombard towers. It would just make it very much like a stalemate game. Anyways, it looks like game number 2 is starting, and this is the moment where I have to mention that most of the Deathmatch games are mirrors, but one of the unique things in Deathmatch World Cup 4 is that this is not a mirror only tournament. We will see if this is good or not. This is going to be the loser of game number 1 picks a home map and 2 civs, and the winner decides which civs he plays. So this is basically fair Civs Cup rules. If you remember, Vinchester chose Arabia as his home map, as he goes for a very, very ambitious castle over here, and I think he just deleted his scout. Let's go back here in time a little bit. I am not sure if this is intentional, so here we go. Game number 2, Vinchester picks Arabia, and he picks Sicilians here, sort of as a counter pick to Goths here, and he deletes his scout. This is a very, very weird approach, because that scout is very important at killing villas. But one thing that it gives you is the ability to get additional villas out, and this is why he brings in Sicilians. Because Sicilians actually build castles a lot faster, so I think what he wants to do is bring in a bunch of sergeants at the beginning, sort of as a counterpick to Goths. I think he was expecting Huskars from Nelly. You see that for Goths, the fast villager killing unit is the Huskar, and according to chat, the scout delete meta is actually a meta for Sicilians. I can see that working. Do you know why? Because if you take a look at the population space, apparently he is getting population space for... Is he getting pop space for his castles as well? It kind of seems like it. We'll have to check, but if he's getting population space for his castles, then it's absolutely worth it. Indeed, he's getting 20 pop per castle. In this case, the scout delete is actually completely reasonable. Think about it this way. You build castles very fast, and you don't need to make houses. So your priority is to pump out as many villas as you can, and it's totally worth it. Sergeants hard counter the Huskars here. They just eat them in close combat. The problem here could be mobility, but Vinchester is actually very, very cautious, quick walling his villas to make sure that his castles go up, and breaking through the Sicilian defenses is going to be extremely hard. So this is the moment where you see Vinchester is already at 28, and this is one of the things that Nelly said at the beginning of the tournament, is that he's very happy as Vinch loses a vill here. This could be an extremely important vill lost, because that's a castle denied at a very crucial hill that mostly in Deathmatch World Cups, I think in Deathmatch World Cup 2 and 3 I casted, it was mirror civs. And in Deathmatch World Cup 4 they decided not to have mirror civs, which brings in the flexibility of being able to sort of counterpick your opponent with certain civilizations, and that kind of feels like the case for Sicilians. Sergeants do have 7 melee armor and 515 combined attack. The Gothic Huskars are actually missing the final defense upgrade, as Vinchester once again goes for a market-heavy approach. So let's talk about the market approach. If you do that, you sacrifice some of your food and wood for some extra gold, which gives you a bit more time to add vills on gold. So you see that Nelly is already adding additional town centers, whereas, well, Vinch already has 3 as well. Obviously, Sicilian faster working TCs actually helps quite a bit, and honestly, Sicilians, as underwhelming they are in random map, they're actually an excellent deathmatch civ. Faster working or faster building castles and faster building town centers is a 10 out of 10 rated bonus on deathmatch. It's super crucial to secure these important hills with castles. Your best unit is available in the castle, so the ability to get those castles up fast is extremely important, especially because you don't need to make houses. This is one of those civilizations, as we have a big clash over here, and we have some bombard cannons from Nelly. So let's talk Goths here. Because the Goths actually have pretty reasonable answers to infantry spam themselves. They have heavy scorpions and they have bombard cannons take down onagers. The sergeants are doing a pretty decent job trying to get some donjons out in the field against the champions, but guess what, that's a lot of scorpions and suddenly they eat up Vinchester's army. Reinforcements are closing in, but I don't see the onagers for Vinchester. We have to point out that one of the reasons why he's getting overrun here is because he added a lot more eco than Nelly did, so this time Nelly is the one going for a much more military heavy focus, and that's pretty common in deathmatch. If one player goes for a very military heavy approach, then his eco is gonna be much weaker, so that player has to finish the game really fast. In this case it is Nelly. If Nelly can snowball the game with the army that he has right now, then he's gonna have no problem winning it, but if he can't start knocking down buildings over here in the next half a minute or so, then he's gonna be in trouble because Vinchester's eco is gonna be much better, and you see that Nelly is running out of gold, especially with the onagers landing some nice shots on those scorpions, and eventually that beef will disappear from in front of the scorpions, as we have a first crusade coming in here. This is the time to pull the trigger on it, because we do have 5 TCs up, and that could be a life-saving upgrade here, although it takes some time for those units to get onto the field. First crusade is bringing restoration on a castle different from this one, so it's not the end of the world that this one went down. So we still have a decent amount of scorpions here for Nelly, and Nelly also has 5 traps in here, but here comes the first crusade, and that's the moment where suddenly Nelly's army will shrink more and more. So with this donjon going down, it's one thing, but you see that Nelly sacrificed his future eco expansion for this push. He's 8 on gold as opposed to, well, Vinch has 7, but one of the reasons why Vinch is low on gold is because Vinchester is actually forced to add vills on food. Still, Vinchester is at 77 vills, although he's got 30 idols. You see that he's got some macro issues here. Maybe he misclicked his vills. This is a very, very micro-heavy approach, and that's one of the reasons why Vinchester might have 20 idols, and honestly, if Vinch has 20 idols sustainably, Nelly's eco isn't that bad anymore. In fact, he's got 35 idols. That's very, very sloppy from Vinch there, and one of the things that is extremely important in deathmatch is macro. Like, you need a crazy good macro in a fast speed game, where you just need to constantly take fights and also micro your eco, and I'm very surprised that Vinchester has so many idols here. It looks like he's just all in on the combat here in the middle, bringing in the onagers. Nelly's push is kind of stalling out. You see that he's using up his final bits of gold, but that's still 82 champions for him and only 31 sergeants for our red player. So Vinchester needs to fix his eco, otherwise he's gonna be in the same problem as Nelly, just out of gold. And the cheap infantry flood of Goths may once again punish another player. And now Nelly is expanding his eco, so clock is ticking for Vinch to fix his eco and capitalize on his better economy here, because Nelly's expansion economically is just much, much better. So the sergeant numbers are just disappearing, and Nelly seems to gain momentum every moment. Bombard cannons will be excellent at taking down those structures as well. And look at this, Nelly's eco is weaker, but he's just able to snowball the game very fast here. Vinch still selling wood here for some extra gold, and Vinchester is still pretty much in this game. But this is going to be an uphill battle from now on, because he's losing map control, and losing those castles hurts so badly, because This is the disadvantage that you take when you go for the Sicilian castles. You don't make houses. But if you don't make houses, then losing the castles means that you get pop-capped. And that's exactly what we're witnessing. One of the reasons why Vinch was housed here is because he's losing his castle. And you see, he loses the castle, drops down to 150 in pop, and once again, he's housed. So, it is a very, very nice advantage at the beginning that you're able to get population space for your castles. However, once you start losing those castles, suddenly you could be in a position where you get housed, and that's exactly what we're seeing. And now Nelly's eco is back on track. He's at 88 wheels, has probably a majority map control. I love these random Huskars on the north and the south. There were a couple of them as well to pick off wheels. And Nelly now has a firm control over this game. 74 army against 30, and now Nelly can replenish his own army here, as I think the main issue here for Vinch was that he wasn't able to capitalize on his better eco because half his eco was idle. I'm not sure if he just misclicked his wheels or what happened, but it very much seemed like he didn't have the time to fix them, and that meant that he wasn't able to just flood units faster than Nelly could. Now its castles going down, this game seems very much over, because while I don't like to call games early, at this point these buildings are just melting like butter, and Vinchester is gonna have a harder and harder time to replenish his army. He also lost control over a gold mine, which is quite crucial in that match, and he could be losing his stone and gold here as well. And that would result in him losing game number 2 as well. And this is why I didn't have a long intro with this series, because you gotta be careful with Deathmatch. Games can be so fast. I've been streaming for 28 minutes, and that included a 5 minutes intro while I was setting things up for the event. So at this point, this is like 23 minutes into the game, and we could be in for a decider game already. So Vinch is trying his best to stop those scorpions and traps, but that feels like a very, very last and desperate effort. He's down to 15 military, and we will have like, Vinch is a big survivor. He's not going to give up easily, but it is a game over here right now for him. He has lost like 80% of the map, and he's at 19 military against 90, and Nelly has the siege to back this one up. So we are gonna have TCs going down one after another, and like, Vinch will just have 0 map control, and eventually he will run out of gold. You see, he's got 10 on gold. In contrast, Nelly has 34 on gold. Nelly also has 54 villagers on food, and like, wherever I look, Vinchester is just losing ground, and another castle could fall here. I'm not sure what Vinchester believes in here in this game, because maybe he doesn't see the overall army of Nelly. That's what I can imagine. Because if he saw that he's up against 100 army, I think he would have tapped out already. Because now he's falling behind in every measurable stat. He's 110 pop against 202 overall, with another castle going down, so houses will be an issue as well for Vinch. He's losing his farming space. Vinch has 4 on gold, so replenishing an army is just a distant dream. And we will have game number 2 in the hands of Nelly as well. So this is the downtime where I am actually able to talk about the matchup, because in Deathmatch, this is a matchup that favors Nelly quite heavily. Nelly is a top 10 Deathmatch player, most likely. I don't remember what he had in Deathmatch World Cup 3, but as I said, I will have a Deathmatch overview video. Let's see, Deathmatch World Cup 3. In Deathmatch World Cup 3, Nelly got to the quarterfinals, and he lost 4-3 to Code. And what you have to know is that Code is one of the most dangerous Deathmatch players out there. Like, Code ended up getting to the finals overall, so Nelly played a very, very good set against a player who got into the finals. So yes, Nelly is probably a top 10 Deathmatch player. One of the unique things of the Deathmatch community and overall Deathmatch tournaments is that there is a bunch of players that are sort of unknown in the random map community, and they're actually very good Deathmatch players. So players like The Code, for example, Daywalker, Rage, Leash, Jidba, and I could list names over and over again. Some of them are familiar names for the viewers of random map tournaments as well. So Rubenstock is an excellent deathmatch player. Taro, Viper are great deathmatch players. I think they were the most important ones, and of course Viper in Deathmatch World Cup 3. So expect a couple of names that you might not be familiar with to upset big names in the AoE scene, because those big names are mostly random map focused, which means that in Deathmatch they might not have the best start. Especially the start is the big thing. Once you get to like the late game stage of Deathmatch, it plays out just like a random map game would. But this beginning, like the early stage, the first 10-15 minutes of a deathmatch game, is where standard random map players could struggle quite badly. Hera and Lyra not participating, that is correct. I think they just don't like to play deathmatch, that's it. I don't think they played in any Deathmatch World Cup. So, yeah, one other thing to point out is because the games can snowball very, very easily, Deathmatch is always played in a double elimination bracket. So, whoever loses here won't be out of the tournament. You go down to a loser's bracket, and if you lose in the loser's bracket, you're out. But if you win all your games in the loser's bracket and you get to the end, you get to the finals. So that's how that match works out. And now we will go to the home map of the winner of the first game. So this is going to be Nelly's home map this time. We're going to Four Lakes, which is an even more so macro heavy map in Deathmatch. We'll have Goths for Nelly once again in blue and Hans for Vinchester in red. Now, you could be asking, how is Nelly using Goths again? He just used it in a previous game. It is the Civ selection rules. The concept is that you pick two civs and the opponent decides which civ to use out of those two, and the other player uses the other one. So, what this means is that Nelly said, I want Huns and Goths, and Vinchester said, hey, I want Huns out of those. So one of the premier civilizations of Deathmatch is Huns, because you have the faster working stables and you don't need to make houses. And that is a massive bonus. Vinchester once again going for a market strategy, but it looks like he's just going to send for the paladins. You see that they completely ignore each other because the idea is that you're just trying to pick off Veils at the beginning. Vinchester, for now, keeping a couple of paladins back at home, and the early paladins sort of counterpick the Huskars because they're able to take them down very easily. One of the other nice things about Huns is that you don't need to make houses, so your start is really fast, especially if you add the fact that you have a faster working stables and you have cheaper cav archers. The combination of these makes Huns a top 5 deathmatch civ. In fact, in many previous deathmatch tournaments, Huns mirror Arabia or Franks mirror Arabia are the generic starting combinations. Now, here's the deal. Gods have the answers to Huns here with Huskars and Halberdiers. So, the real tricky thing here for Vinch is being able to micro his units. He's gonna have to do a lot of micro here. Vinch actually lost 2 Veils here at the beginning, although in reality he just killed 6, or he lost 6 and he killed 4. So after all, he lost 2. There will be things being missed here on that match. The game is so fast paced that it's impossible to cast it without missing a single will kill. But Vinch once again using the market in here, and I think the problem is that now you have to start dropping down your fortifications. He picks off another Vil, as we will have the Halberdiers overrunning his cavalry, and that's the big problem with Huns versus Goths, and I'm really unsure if I like Vinchester picking Huns here for himself, because it is just so much more micro-heavy. Nelly just needs to right-click the base of Vinch with the Hubs and Huskars, and they will eat up the Paladins, they will eat up the Cav Archers, whereas Vinch constantly has to babysit his Cav Archers to avoid getting stabbed down by Halberdiers. And, while he's doing some nice things, I feel like he's losing so much value overall. I don't think there's a value KD here in Capture Age. Apparently not. But if we would look at that, I feel like you could see that Nelly lost 105 units, or 130 units actually, and killed 106. But the value of those units is just crazy. And you see that now Vinch is adding some more gold by selling some of his food. Obviously, that is going to backfire. So when you play a strategy, yes, we have some Tarkans here. Tarkans are actually an excellent unit for Huns in Deathmatch because they train slightly faster than Paladins. So oftentimes you see players opening Tarkans instead of Paladin. As he stops a castle here, he stops a dock here as well, as he's now dropping additional TCs. Nelly already on 2,000, and this is what I was talking about. This is not the type of fight where Vinchester wants to take. And if you look at Nelly's resources, like, he's just living life here. I feel like Huns were just a bad pick against Goths here, because Vinch is already out of gold, and he's just losing so expensive units. And Nelly is still sitting at 7k resources. This feels over already, and I feel like Huns have the answers to Goths, and Goths have the answers to Huns, but it's about limiting the macro that you need to do. And if you go back to the previous game, Vinchester had trouble with the macros, so I was wondering why he picks a civ that is very micro heavy. Because you have to keep track of all your cav archers and avoid getting them slaughtered by halberdiers. Now Vinch is adding light cap, but that's just a desperation move. And I did mention that Deathmatch is a super fast-paced game mode. This is like 30 minutes into the set, and we might have a winner already. And it's not like, you know, these were actually not the fastest Deathmatch games I've ever seen. So, I've seen faster Deathmatch games. Some of them are actually ending in 2 minutes. And with that, congratulations, Nelly, to absolutely slaughtering Vinchester here in the first round of Deathmatch World Cup. By the way, I looked at this matchup and said, hey, this could be a very competitive one, because Vinchester is, even though he's not really a full-focused Deathmatch player, he's actually a very good player overall. So I was like, oh, this could go to 5 games. I woke up at 6:30 my time in the morning to cast this. And here I am sitting at 7:42, and the series has ended. How can Huns beat Goths in post-imp? Probably by sniping their vills in early game deathmatch. Because it's probably going to be Huskar versus Paladin openings, so the Paladins will be able to protect your own vills against the Huskars, and you can snipe the opponent's vills. Plus you have the Cav Archers to snipe vills as well. But once you get to the Huskar plus Halberdier comp, I don't think that Huns have anything against that. Technically they do. If you can snipe down the Halberdiers with Cav Archers and you can kill the Huskars with Paladins, then sure. But I feel like that's just way too macro heavy, and unless you have insanely fast speed, I don't think that's actually going to be legitimate. So with that, Nelly wins this set. But I actually want to talk about the brackets here a little bit, because yeah, I think the set is over. But let's talk through the brackets of Deathmatch World Cup.